The Chinese military has denounced the U.S. and Canada for sending ships through the Strait of Taiwan, calling it a provocation as tensions build in the South China Seas. Beijing considers Taiwan to be a Chinese territory and has been making military moves that appear aimed at asserting authority over the region. And joining me now for further analysis is John Ullyot, former spokesperson for the National Security Council under President Donald Trump. John, welcome back. Always good to be with you. As you know, China has been engaged in a military buildup to gain an upper hand in the Taiwan Straits and South China Sea to the concerns of the U.S. and other major powers. What do these developments mean for the stability in that region and also global security as a whole?
Great. Well, thanks again for having me, Tracy. It's pretty clear what this is, that China senses weakness from this administration, from the Biden administration. And so they're willing to test Taiwan and how serious we are about protecting Taiwan, if at all, militarily. And so what they've been doing is, to your point, China, the Chinese Communist Party military, has been sending planes into the air defense identification zone, which is not, it's not actually over Taiwan, but it's close to Taiwan. And what that does, they've almost doubled the number of flights just 2 weeks ago that they normally do, their previous high from earlier in the summer. And so what they're doing is they're really ramping up their testing of Taiwan's military response to their air incursions, and they're just sending a signal that they are very belligerent and that they're testing both Taiwan, but also they're sending a signal to Biden and his team that they don't take our willingness to defend Taiwan as seriously as they did under President Trump and under previous administrations. So it's a real challenge. It's what they're doing on Hong Kong. It's what they're doing with the Uyghurs, et cetera. What they did is, if you take a step back and you look at when the Biden team came in office, there was that awful visit that they had. It was a summit in Anchorage with Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor, with their Chinese Communist Party counterparts. And they were lectured for close to 15 minutes by the Chinese about our record on race, if you can believe it or not, and on human rights. And to have them lecture us like that, and then it's been downhill since then. What happens, Tracy, is that if you look at the weakness that we showed two months ago in Afghanistan, that the Biden team showed, that's yet another sign of regional weakness and overall weakness for this administration. So what it does, it just ups the courage, if you will. It ups the motivation for the Chinese to be testing us, and in this case, it's Taiwan, and it could very well end up with a military action, which would just be devastating for the region. So we can talk about what to do next, but that's the problem right now.
Yeah, and John, another thing, and I know that you know about this making a lot of headlines today, are those reports that China launched a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile that actually circled the Earth back in August, but China is really denying those reports, saying that it was just a routine spacecraft check. I want to get your thoughts on that. And also, what else can you tell us about these hypersonic missiles and why it's such a concern?
Well, the hypersonic missiles is sort of the next generation, if you will, of that both China, Russia, and the U.S. have been trying to make strides over the last 5+ years in this hypersonic missile technology. What it does is they fly over a low orbit, so it's not as high as a ballistic missile orbit. And so as a result, they are a lower orbit, and they can actually fly longer and about 5 times the speed of sound, and they're much harder to detect by our air defense systems that are all built toward stopping a traditional ballistic missile. These would fly lower in the trajectory, lower in the atmosphere, and then be able to come around, as you point out, halfway around the world, or all the way around the world in this case, in their tests that they did. And so what it does is they actually came through the South Pole. And so all of our air defenses, such as they are, they're difficult enough to stop a hypersonic missile. But even if they were, our missile defenses are aimed toward the northern hemisphere. And this way, the Chinese can just come right around and attack us. And another thing that this did, Tracy, is it shows an abysmal intel failure by the Biden administration here. The intel community was wrong on Afghanistan. They are now wrong. They were totally taken by surprise by this Chinese action that was reported by the Financial Times' Dmitry Sevastopoulos, a very good scoop by him. And so what you have now is you have an issue where the intel community is just not able, it has made some bad calls, and that shows bad leadership from the top, from the president. And so they've got to get that in gear, and they've got to get it in gear quickly.
Yeah, John, very, very concerning. We appreciate your time as always. John Ullyot, Republican strategist and former spokesperson for the National Security Council under President Donald Trump. Thank you again, John.
Thank you, Tracy.